Robert Langston had built his empire from the ground up, a titan in the world of luxury construction whose touch reshaped skylines. Yet there he stood, a hollow figure framed by the French doors of his sprawling Connecticut estate, watching a moment that pierced deeper than any corporate failure ever could. Out in the garden, under the golden cast of the late afternoon sun, a man in dusty work clothes held a spoon to the lips of his daughter, Robert's daughter. Marcus Johnson, the bricklayer overseeing the garden renovation, had calloused hands and a calm voice, gentle as a breeze. The little girl beside him, 8-year-old Emily Langston, laughed as he described the colors she could no longer see. Her laughter was light and clear, something Robert hadn't heard in 2 years. Not since the accident. Not since she lost her sight. And not since he'd stopped looking her in the eye. "That's it, Emily." "One more bite," Marcus said, his voice warm. She reached up, her fingers brushing his cheek with uncanny precision. "Tell me again what the roses look like." Robert retreated further into the shadows, something burning deep in his chest. Shame? Envy? Maybe both. Marcus had known Emily for 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, and she already trusted him in a way. She never trusted her own father anymore. The accident had been Robert's fault. He had been driving that day. One careless moment, one unseen bend, and Emily's world had gone dark forever. He'd walked away with only a scratch, but the guilt had scarred him in places no surgeon could ever reach. Since then, Emily had been raised by hired help, nannies and therapists, while Robert buried himself in work and grief, drifting through life like a ghost in his own home. The garden project was supposed to be routine, something to fill the silence. Marcus was just another name on a contractor's list. But Robert hadn't counted on the man becoming a bridge between his daughter and a life she'd nearly lost. "Sir," came a voice behind him. Mrs. Calloway, the housekeeper, stood hesitantly at the terrace door. "There's a call from Shanghai. The development team is waiting." Robert nodded without a word, casting one last glance at the garden before turning away. As he walked through the mansion's echoing hallways, he paused by a familiar portrait, his late wife, Margaret. Her smile, frozen in time, made his throat tighten. "You would have known how to fix this," he whispered. That evening, his mind refused to focus during his overseas conference call. Every time he tried to think about zoning permits or international bids, his thoughts wandered back to the garden, to Marcus and Emily, to that laugh. When he returned home, Mrs. Calloway greeted him again, this time with a note of concern. "Emily, missed another piano lesson. That's the 3rd one." "I thought she loved those lessons," he said. "She did," the housekeeper replied softly. "But she says the keys are meaningless now. She doesn't want to play anymore." Margaret had been a pianist. Emily used to sit at her side, mimicking melodies and giggling when she hit the wrong notes. Now, even music had faded from her world. That night, unable to sleep, Robert headed to the kitchen for water. As he passed the back door, voices stopped him in his tracks. He stepped closer and listened. "She thinks you don't love her anymore," Marcus said. Robert's breath caught. "She told me you can't even be in the same room without looking away." Marcus's voice was calm but steady. "People who are hurt sometimes hide, not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to show it." Emily's voice trembled. "Did you lose someone too?" There was a pause, heavy and long. "My daughter, Zoe. She was 7. Robert felt the blood drain from his face. "She had leukemia," Marcus continued. "We fought hard, but sometimes love doesn't fix everything." For the first time in 2 years, Robert felt the full weight of what he'd become. It wasn't guilt that kept him away, it was fear, cowardice dressed up in grief. And Marcus, a man broken by loss, had somehow found the courage to be whole for someone else's child. The next morning, Robert made a decision. He needed to know who Marcus really was. Not out of suspicion, at least not entirely, but because something about the man didn't add up. A bricklayer with the soul of a poet. There had to be more. Within days, a report landed on Robert's desk. Marcus Johnson, 42, former civil engineer, graduated top of his class, married once. Amelia, passed from cancer. One child, Zoe, lost to leukemia. Afterward, Marcus had vanished from the world of blueprints and skyscrapers, choosing manual labor over boardrooms. Needed to feel something real again, a source had said. Robert read the file twice, then a third time. He couldn't understand it. Why would a man with that background choose this life? And how could he carry so much pain and still offer so much warmth? That night, Robert did something he hadn't done in years. He entered Emily's room. She was asleep, her breathing slow and steady. He touched her hair gently, as if afraid she might vanish. It was the first moment of connection he'd allowed himself since the crash. The next day, he canceled his meetings and planned a small picnic. Emily came down the stairs in her pajamas, confused. "I thought we could spend the day together," he said. "In the garden." Her expression shifted from disbelief to joy in a heartbeat. Really? Her smile lit something inside him that had long gone dim. They spent the morning near the fountain, awkward at first. When Marcus appeared, he started to leave, but Emily called out, "Marcus, come say hi to my dad." The men exchanged a glance. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. Over the next few weeks, the three of them settled into a rhythm. Robert watched as Marcus taught Emily to navigate by touch and smell, turning colors into sensations. Lavender was soft, like whispered secrets. Yellow felt like laughter. Emily blossomed in the garden like the flowers around her. One afternoon, Robert approached him. "How do you do it?" he asked. "After everything?" Marcus paused. "Zoe made me promise something before she died. She said, 'Don't forget to see the colors, Dad, even when it's dark.' I didn't understand then, but now I do." Robert followed his gaze to where Emily sat, smiling with her hands pressed to a flowering bush. "She's still here," Marcus said. "You just need to see her." The words sank into Robert like a stone in a deep well. Then came the envelope. No return address. Inside, a medical file and a short note. "You need to see what he missed." It was about Dr. Hale, the neurologist who had declared Emily's blindness irreversible. The file detailed past complaints, misdiagnoses, negligence, and settlements swept under the rug. One case stood out. Zoe Johnson, diagnosed terminal, but later found to have had a treatable condition, too late to reverse. Robert's hands trembled. Could it be? Had the same doctor failed both their daughters? He couldn't ignore the possibility. Nor could he ignore the timing of Marcus's arrival. Was this all coincidence? Or had Marcus come here with a purpose far more complex than kindness? Robert stared at the file, his mind racing. Revenge? Redemption? What did Marcus want? And if Emily's condition wasn't final, what would he do with that hope? The sun was barely up when Robert Montgomery found himself staring at an old photo pinned to the center of his study wall. It showed a smiling man with strong hands and a gentle gaze, holding a young girl with curly hair, Marcus Johnson, and his daughter, Zoe. What chilled Robert wasn't the warmth in the image. It was the cold pattern emerging around it. The same irregularities in diagnostic charts, the same doctor's name, the same cruel outcome. Robert's voice trembled as he whispered to no one, "This isn't coincidence." He didn't wait for morning coffee or his usual routine. By dawn, his legal team was assembled in the conference room, blurry-eyed and silent. "Dig up everything on Dr. Charles Bennett," Robert instructed. "Every cent he's touched, every case he's handled. I want to know who's kept him safe all these years." They scattered quickly, leaving Robert standing at the window, his eyes drawn to the garden below. Charlotte was there, running her fingers along lavender stems, guided patiently by Marcus's calm voice. The sight that had once stirred confusion now filled him with dread. Something wasn't adding up. "Sir," his secretary's voice crackled. Through the intercom, "Mr. Johnson is on the line. He says it's urgent." Robert picked up the call, bracing himself. "I need to cancel tomorrow's work," Marcus said, his voice heavy. "I have a doctor's appointment for Charlotte." "Why would you be taking my daughter to a doctor?" Robert asked sharply. There was a pause. "We need to talk," Marcus said. "Tonight, after Charlotte's asleep." That evening, Charlotte laughed freely as she and Marcus shared stories in the garden, unaware of the storm building just beyond the glass doors. When she finally went to bed, Robert found Marcus waiting in the study holding a folder. "I'm guessing you've already seen some of this," Marcus began, laying the file on the desk. "I sent the first envelope. I needed to know if you'd take it seriously." Robert said nothing. "Bennett isn't just negligent," Marcus continued. "He's dangerous. He misdiagnosed Zoe on purpose. She didn't have leukemia. She had a treatable autoimmune disease, but he enrolled her in an illegal drug trial anyway. She never had a chance." Robert's hands clenched into fists. "And Charlotte," Marcus added, "isn't permanently blind. I took her scans to an independent neurologist, Dr. Elisa Winters. She believes your daughter's condition is reversible. But we have to act fast, and quietly. Bennett can't know we're onto him." "Why not?" Robert asked. Marcus hesitated. "Because there are others. Dozens, maybe more. I think he's starting a new phase of his experiment. And if we push too soon..." Robert's voice rose. "You got close to my daughter, manipulated your way into our lives. I got this job because I suspected what Bennett had done," Marcus said, standing firm. "But I stayed because your daughter reminded me of mine, and because I couldn't walk away knowing she might go through what Zoe did." Robert felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted. "Why didn't you go to the police?" "I did. Doors closed, records vanished, witnesses recanted. But you have the power to do what I couldn't." He slid another folder toward Robert. "Dr. Winters agreed to see Charlotte tomorrow. If you want proof, you'll get it there." For a long moment, Robert didn't speak. Then he nodded. "We're going." The next day, he told his staff he was taking time off for a family outing. He took Charlotte to Dr. Winters' private clinic, holding her hand tighter than usual. The tests were extensive. The results were conclusive. Her blindness was not only misdiagnosed, it could be reversed. Robert left the clinic a different man. Whatever reservations he had about Marcus evaporated. He had the truth now, and truth demanded action. That evening, the plan took form. Robert activated every resource at his disposal: attorneys, investigators, reporters, politicians. Marcus handed over years of research, including contact information for other affected families. Together, they began constructing the case that would bring down a man no one thought could be touched. 3 weeks later, federal agents escorted Dr. Bennett out of his office in handcuffs. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His empire of deceit had collapsed under the weight of a bricklayer's persistence and a billionaire's reach. More than 40 families came forward. Class action lawsuits flooded in, and the world learned that the man they once trusted had manipulated data, hidden adverse reactions, and preyed on children in the name of research. Outside the courthouse, Charlotte held both Robert's and Marcus's hands. Her once vacant eyes now followed movements, her expression full of curiosity. A reporter asked, "Mr. Montgomery, what led you to uncover the truth?" Robert looked down at his daughter, then to Marcus. "Sometimes the truth shows up in unlikely places," he replied. "And sometimes you need to lose everything to realize what you still have." Months later, a ribbon-cutting ceremony marked the opening of the Zoe Foundation, a state-of-the-art treatment center named after Marcus's daughter. Built with Robert's resources and Marcus's vision, the center was already caring for 15 misdiagnosed children. Dr. Winters, now the director, adapted Bennett's research into a legal and safe protocol. Ironically, the very data meant to serve Bennett's ego now served a higher cause. Charlotte, now nearly fully sighted, became the Foundation's public face. Her story inspired thousands to challenge flawed diagnoses and seek second opinions. Families once without hope now had options. Meanwhile, Bennett's former allies were subpoenaed. Hospitals he partnered with scrambled to manage the fallout. A system that once enabled him now turned against him with brutal swiftness. Robert changed too. Montgomery Construction restructured, redirecting a significant share of its profits to build children's hospitals and support medical ethics reform. "I spent my life building towers," he told a journalist, "but the foundation that matters most is the one my daughter helped me see." One quiet afternoon, he found Marcus standing alone in the garden. Children played nearby, their laughter floating on the breeze. "She'd be 11 today," Marcus said softly. Robert didn't need to ask who. "Do you think we honored her?" he asked. Marcus nodded. "Revenge is about destruction. Justice builds something new. We built something." Robert looked at the children running under the trees. "If you hadn't walked into our lives, I couldn't have done this without you either," Marcus said. "One voice can be drowned out, but two, that's a signal." That week, a new child arrived at the Foundation. Emma, age 7, had been labeled untreatable. Her parents had all but given up until they heard Charlotte's story. Watching Emma's eyes light up during her first treatment, Dr. Winters said, "You always know when it starts to come back." Their gaze sharpens, and then they smile. A year after Bennett's trial, Charlotte celebrated her birthday surrounded by children whose lives had been saved. Her vision nearly restored, her laughter ringing clear. She stood as living proof of what hope and persistence can achieve. Robert watched the celebration, reflecting on how far they'd come. Before Marcus, he had been rich but empty. Now he understood what it meant to truly see. And as the sun dipped low over the garden, the plaque on the foundation wall caught the last light of the day. In memory of Zoe Johnson, who helped us see what matters most.